I once spent a day in a Chinese prison for holding a banner on Tiananmen Square. The banner didn't break any law, it didn't attack the government, it didn't call for revolution, it didn't mention politics or economics. It had 3 words on it: truth, compassion, tolerance. Those are the core principles of Falun Dafa, Falun Gong, a traditional Buddhist practice that had been banned by the regime. And I was holding the word compassion. To the police, that word was illegal. Not a metaphor, it was treated as a crime. Why? Because in the system I was standing inside. In that, compassion is not a valid variable. It implies a moral value that comes from outside the state, from outside material power and outside economics. And that is dangerous. Today I want to show you the model of humanity that put me in that prison cell, not to shock you, but to help you see something more clearly. When a system cannot recognize a human soul, it will eventually try to erase it. 19th century industrial cities, factories, ledgers. Now this model didn't begin with cruelty. It began in the 19th century, which was chaotic. Industrial cities were crowded, work was really brutal, inequality was everywhere. Many thinkers believed that they had found the root cause of human suffering. They didn't see it as sin or moral failure, not even the human heart. They blamed material conditions. They thought that if you could reorganize economics, they believed that you could reorganize humanity itself. This idea became foundational to socialist thought, especially in the work of Karl Marx. Marx argued that religion, morality, and meaning were not eternal truths, but byproducts of economic structures. In his view, a human being is not first a moral being. They are first a worker, a producer, a unit shaped by class and labor. This wasn't framed as a hatred of humanity, it was framed as science. Now that's the crucial shift. Once you claim that economics explains everything, you don't just criticize religion, you replace it, because there is no higher authority, no transcendent reference point, no moral law beyond the system itself. That's when good becomes just historically necessary and wrong becomes counterproductivity. Truth becomes useful to the cause. But this is what atheism meant in this context. Not just a disbelief in God, but disbelief that humans answer to anything higher than material conditions and collective goals. So this wasn't just philosophical, it was necessarily political too, because if there is no God, the state becomes the highest power. And if there is no soul, there is nothing in you that cannot touch the state. So this isn't just a theory to me, it's also part of my bloodline. My grandparents on both sides were Russians who escaped the Bolsheviks in the 1900s. They fled to China, where my father was born and raised, until the communist regime took over there too, and they had to flee again. My husband's family had to flee the former Czechoslovakia to avoid being put into prison. And then there was me, standing in Tiananmen Square. 3 generations, 3 different countries, 3 different decades, but the exact same logic. If a human being does not fit the economic model, they are not considered a person to be heard. They are treated as a problem to be solved, like a malfunctioning unit, debris to be cleared. When you remove the soul from the equation, removing the person becomes a matter of logistics. That is why this pattern has repeated throughout history, not because people forget history, but because the model itself has no end point. This is why my banner was illegal. If the world is only matter, only economics, only power, then compassion is seen as a weakness. It's inefficient, it slows the factory, it interferes with historical momentum, progress, as they say. But if we are more than machines, then compassion isn't weakness. It is perhaps the most real thing in the world. The system could arrest me because it could not compute me. It didn't know what to do with a value that didn't originate from within itself. And that's the truth I see. The system didn't crush compassion. It revealed its own limits. Now you might hear my story, prison cells, refugees, escapees, and think, well, that's over there, that's history, isn't it? But listen to how we talk about humans today. Human capital, users, data points, productivity metrics. When you feel guilty for resting, when you feel anxious for not producing, you are feeling the ghost of the same logic. Not the violence, but the reduction. The pressure to justify your existence through output. The pressure to be a unit. Now they could arrest me, they could take my banner, but they could not take the meaning of the word compassion, because that didn't come from their system, and neither do you. You are human, you have an inner life that no algorithm can predict and no state can truly authorize. You, me, we're more than an economic unit, more than material conditions, more than what we produce. Now this is part 4 of this series, and in the next one we'll look at what happened when this reduced view of humanity merged with modern technology, and how algorithms quietly inherited the power once claimed by ideology. Until then, remember this: any system that must deny your soul in order to function has already proven its own failure.